delighted this morning. Someone who I know very well, spoken to a lot in the last year or two. Welcome, Yagmur Sissman, talking with me this morning. ULSB class of 2021, Yagmur.
I know.
Can I just get you, just for the purposes of the video, just sort of introduce yourself and kind of what you studied and where you're at right now?
Yeah, so I'm a final year BA financial economics student. Finished my exams a couple of weeks ago, so I'm just relaxing at the minute. And I've secured a place on Unilever's graduate scheme, so hopefully in September I'll be starting their finance graduate scheme, and yeah, excited.
Exciting times. What just tell us a little bit the role that you'll be doing for Unilever. What is it you'll be doing for them?
So it's a 3-year rotational program, so it's just very, very broad, which is one of the reasons I applied to it. I didn't really know specifically what I wanted to do, and they cover quite a wide range. It just depends if you're in their sort of UK office or their global office. So it's just very, very broad. Accountancy, investment, just everything really in between. It's exciting.
And I remember talking to you some time back. I'm guessing that the way you spent your final year with things as they've been, with COVID, was not how you imagined spending the final year. Again, while we're still in kind of the remote working style, if you like, how did you go about managing kind of making your applications, but also your workload as well? That must have been quite a challenge.
Yeah, it's something honestly, I struggled with, to be honest, at the beginning. I knew from last year I really wanted to apply for a placement year, and I knew that I just needed to do everything I didn't do in that year to get a place, because my time management was off. I always sort of spent a long time just trying to write a perfect cover letter when you really don't need to spend like 50 years on a cover letter, and leaving last minute to the deadline day, and sometimes they even just stop before their deadline because I've already got enough applications. So it was extremely difficult to manage that. But I think something that I did specifically for this year was just realize that this is your chance. This is like the year that you need to get a job now. So you need to be serious about this. But also, I think, yes, you've got everything going on at uni and your workload and everything. But I think if you just like designate a day or two a week just for application, just like nothing else, just look at your applications. And that's kind of how I made it. So it was consistent, but like not overbearing, if that makes sense. But yeah.
Were there times, I say, you've kind of got that set up where you start your applications and you're virtually doing your university work. I guess there might have been times, certainly with the applications, where you thought it's not happening. How did you kind of keep going?
100%. Like the waiting is the most like daunting part, because you don't know. But honestly, I think one thing that you learn throughout this process when you're applying to things is like you don't have time to just like be upset that you didn't pass, or like, oh, it went terribly, I'm gonna like go cry like for 5, like, it's fine, it's completely fine. And like most of the time it's better than you actually thought. And I really learned that from my assessment center, like just from one part being terrible, I was like, oh, I've ruined it, like I'm not gonna get it. But sometimes like it's actually gone much better than you think. And for generally just the application process, like it's okay, just like keep going. Everyone makes mistakes. You're not going to get every position you apply for. And that's something that I learned last year in my placement assembly. The first thing that the careers team was like, you're going to get rejections. And we were just kind of like, that's not a very positive way to start, but it's the truth. Like you're not going to get, it's a very cruel process, because you just get filtered out like crazy sometimes. But and I hope that's not like discouraging to people to say, but it's just kind of how it is. But like if it's right for you, you'll get it. And especially like the initial stages with the tests and interviews and the cover letters, like they're literally just from practice. So if you like practice enough, you'll definitely just like whiz through those. And then the really serious sort of end parts are the ones that like, yeah, you get to like get nervous about.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I mean, I was going to ask you a little bit about sort of recruitment and selection processes. And I often say, yeah, as you know, even before COVID and all the rest of it, the idea of kind of doing things like assessment centres, interviews virtually was starting to sort of creep in, I guess. I mean, reflecting back on, you know, all those applications you made and obviously the successful one with Unilever, any sort of takes or pearls of wisdom on kind of just the selection processes you faced, any challenges, any things that have gone particularly well?
I think for the application process, the sort of initial CV cover letter thing, and something that I drastically changed from last year, and I was able to just like apply just like 5 applications a week, for example. I really had this sort of system where I had like a template cover letter, even though that's not really recommended, but I had a template cover letter.
Broad structure.
Yeah, and but I still made it specific to the company, and I sort of did that by, this was like a little tactic that I made, just really, really successful for me. So I really want to share that. So I would look on the positions sort of overview, like every job has an overview, and they sometimes list the skills, the specific skills they want, or it's just like in a big chunk of text, so you just unfortunately have to extract from. And it'd be around like 2 or 3 points, like teamwork, communication, leadership. Like those are usually like the ones that they want, but it's mixed, like analytical skills and things like that. And I look at my experiences that I had on my CV and just extra things that I hadn't put on my CV, and like write the skills underneath those, and then I'd see which one matched, and those are the ones that I'd put in my cover letter. Then that's what made it personal, because it would never be the same experiences I'd mention. And also like, so that kind of covered the why are you good for this role kind of thing. And then for why the company, I literally just go on Google and type the company and put news next to it and just see like what resonated with me. Just like, and that really shows that you know, you want to go to the company, you know things about the company, you're eager to be there, and that's kind of how I made. So like that initial application stage, I think, is important to apply like fast and get through fast, because the real sort of difficult parts start after that. So I think once you get that sort of like the hang of that, just like adjusting your cover letter and CV, which is something I really didn't do last year. It really, you can really, I think I made like 4 times the amount of applications that I did from last year. So it just really, you know, gets out. In terms of assessments, that's like the major thing that I failed. I think like 90% of my applications from last year, and I wish I was exaggerating. I just failed the assessments. I just couldn't get the hang of it. I didn't understand. I was crying. But I'm just going to give the loud, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going to give the lousy and say you just need to practice those. And that's kind of just how it happens. Like there is no magical formula. Like I think we were, I attended an insight day with EY, and the recruiter was talking about how his friend wanted to apply to EY and she just couldn't make it through the assessment stage, and she took a year out and just did so much practice, and she got like one of the highest scores in the assessment. So it's literally just practice. Like you don't like need to have like 500 IQ. It's not that you're not smart, it's literally just practice and you'll get through that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because I would completely agree. Having struggled myself in the past with psychometric tests, again, it's important, I think, as you say, it's not about kind of completely acing it or being super smart. It's about practicing enough to kind of be able to then hit the level and get through, which is all you need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
No, interesting. And certainly with the tailoring, yeah, very, very much so. I think it's interesting when you mentioned, I quite like that with the news thing, because I can think of students I've spoken to, and I think we've discussed this, where people think with the motivation bit, people think it's how much you know about the company, and it's not so much about how much you know, but more about maybe, particularly with what's gone on, what's current, that you're looking at what's up to date. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think with that specifically, like when you write it in your cover letter, you don't really think much of it. You just kind of, it's just a paragraph that you put in. But it gets really important at the end stages when you have your final interview. Those kind of questions are brought up, like why do you want to work for this company? And when that question comes up, you can think back to what you researched for your cover letter and think, you know, why do I want to actually work for this company? What have they done that I would be proud to say that I was a part of? And that's kind of where you bring that in from. So it doesn't look that sort of significant in the early stages, but when you get to the end stage, like you kind of carry that through. So yeah, it is quite an important part of the application process.
Yeah, definitely. And staying with the application process, can I ask you now about maybe your experiences of the later stages?
Yeah.
And any sort of thoughts, reflections on maybe interviews and also assessment centres?
Yeah, God, assessment centres are brutal. That's not going to be around the bush. It is that I think my day was 10 to 5 with very minimal breaks, and it was a day that tested me a lot, I think. You know, especially when you see other candidates as well, and you can get intimidated, and you know, when people introduce themselves, like I had, not that University of Leicester is not an amazing university, but I had some, oh my goodness, I had some amazing students, like a finance master's in Imperial. I had like 3 people like doing a master's from Warwick, and they were all older than me. I was like, what is happening? Like, I'm never gonna get in with these people. But I think that's kind of where, and I think Paul really helped me with this, like the imposter syndrome. Like, I just really did not believe in myself. I was just like, this is not gonna happen. But I think if you get to that stage, and I think it's really important to remember, like if you've gotten to that stage, you're really there for a reason. Like you deserve to be there. So it's not like the other people have done more than you. You're literally in the same stage. So don't doubt yourself. Like believe in yourself. That's really sort of cringe, but you got to believe in yourself because you've gotten to that position for a reason. So I think just keeping your spirits high. It's easier said than done, but keeping that sort of, you know, that energy going throughout the day. It can be difficult because it's very intense, but it will help you throughout that day. There was like I said, that there was this one part of the day, it was like 3/4 in, and I thought I just did terribly. I literally, like, I had a break after and I was nearly on the verge of crying just because it was just so terribly. But yeah, I think you just got to push through and it'll be better. But yeah, they're very intense. If I could describe it in like one word, it's just intense, but it's okay.
A couple of things I want to ask you about on that, because you're right. I do remember you telling me about that and it's easy, isn't it, to kind of, you know, whether it's virtual or whether it's there, you know, to coin a phrase, look around the room and think everyone here is better than me.
Yeah.
And yet you were the one that got that role.
I know.
So I guess my first question to you would be, when you reflect back on that, certainly when that initial kind of, oh, everyone is just miles better than me here, and then you get the news you've been successful. When you look back on that assessment centre, what did you get right? What do you think it was about what you did in your approach that enabled you to be successful, Yagmur?
I mean, at the end of the assessment centre, when I did receive the call, like they give feedback anyway on specific things. Right. But for me, like looking back, because my application process obviously at Unilever wasn't that long. I got fast tracked into the assessment centre.
Yes.
Yeah. But to answer your question, I think looking back, although it was quite short lived, my sort of journey, I think what sort of set me apart, and I hate talking about myself like this, but I think what set me apart was like being genuine. Like I can't be serious. I always sort of laugh and smile. And even in an interview, like when I had my interview at the end, which was 45 minutes, just 45 minutes talking to someone that's in a senior position in the company you want, is quite daunting, but it was more of a conversation, and I just really enjoyed, I think for me, it was just being genuine and actually really wanting to be part of the company, not because it was, you know, it's a prestigious company, it's amazing. It's genuinely because I liked what they did as a company. And I said, like, it would be really rewarding being a part of that team because you know that you helped people in some way or was a part of a project that had an impact on people's lives. And that's kind of what I wanted to get from a job. And that's kind of what I said. So I think really finding your like core reason to join the company, which is kind of why I didn't want to work in a bank. I was like, I don't really know like why I would want to work in a bank. Like might want to, like, I'm not judging that, but like I was just like, I don't really know why I would, apart from like maybe you get a really high salary. So I think once you find your reason, like your core reason, it's really easier to talk about it. Like it's quite difficult lying for 45 minutes on why you want that position. So
Yeah,
I think just finding your reason and just being genuine about it, and they do see that, and that's kind of like a thing that people say, just be yourself, but literally just be yourself and it'll be fine.
yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, I've heard a few times, and I think I might mention it to you, that often the piece of advice that employers give for assessment centres, and it always seems to me to be the most bizarre piece of advice, is they'll say, enjoy it. And
Yeah.
enjoy it. It's an
Yeah.
assessment centre or an interview, but actually, as you say, you refer there to the conversation. If it's something that really aligns with your values and you really enjoy talking about it, then I guess there almost is that enjoyment factor.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, of course, like when we had our tech check, so obviously because it was all online, which is a different set of difficulty, we had like a tech check, so everyone sort of hopped on like 2 days before to check if their sort of everything was up to date and everything worked, their microphones, cameras, and things. And um, the people that were sort of moderating the day, they were like, "Oh, and have fun, you guys! It'll be great." And we were just like,
Yeah.
"What? We're gonna die tomorrow. You don't understand." And like I don't want to say things that are genuinely heard. I want this to be useful. But honestly, like if you just find your reason and have your sort of ideas together and why you want to be a part of that, it will just come naturally. Just try to relax. Again, easier said than done, but I think it will just kind of flow out and it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, good advice. I would completely agree. Um, okay, you mentioned there, obviously there was the fast track element to
Hmm.
your, getting to the assessment with Unilever. So I wanted to kind of ask you about that, Yagmur, but also kind of tie that in with, if I were to take you back in time, what advice you might give to first year you,
Hmm.
middle year you, to kind of really make the most of these things as you go along. If I hand over to you on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, something I wanted to mention. I think so. The reason I got fast tracked was because I attended an exclusive Insight Day, and when I say exclusive, it's because I was well, I still am technically an Upreach associate. So Upreach is a charity, I believe they go by charity, who sort of helps students that are like from low income households or sort of in terms of postcode, like not so well performing area, things like that. And they take on board students with that have a lot of potential and they help them reach their potential. I think that's kind of what
Yeah.
they say they are, kind of thing. I hope I marketed that right,
Yeah,
but
I guess, yeah.
they have been amazing. Like I've used both Upreach and the career service like throughout my 3 years, and with Upreach, what I really enjoyed about them was they had partner companies, and one of them was Unilever. And I think it's great for the business school students because they do have law and tech and those kind of subjects as well, but they have a lot of sort of business based ones. They have consultancy, they've got professional services, they've got all the big four. So they've got EY, Deloitte, PwC, and what's the last one, KPMG. They all of them are partners as well. And obviously Unilever was one, Nestle is one. There's a bunch of other companies that they're partnered with, and they have these insight days with specifically just for the associates to be on. Of course, they were all online this year, so it wasn't that great. But we got to attend those, and not that all the companies do it, but Unilever specifically, because they are a company that recognizes social mobility and it is really important to them. They chose a few students from the Insight Day to fast track. If they were sort of impressed with them, they just fast track them to the last stage. Just because it, like the Insight Day itself was quite like a mini assessment center in a way, because we interacted with each other and things like that. So I got fast track through there. So I wanted to mention that because I didn't know about any of these sort of organizations that existed, really. That it's not bad to have extra help, and I owe my like my fast track, like maybe of course if I went through the normal application process I would have gotten it still, but it definitely made it easier, and it helped me just in other ways, not just the graduate scheme. Like I talked more than I did. I attended presentations, I presented things, and it was really, really helpful. So there are more charities and organizations like that, but I think Upreach is really, really good if you think you fit the criteria. So that's that. But for sort of first year, second year, I remember going to the careers fair in first year and to the stands, and everyone was sort of older. They were all in their second and third years and master students and things like that. And I went around the stalls asking, oh, is there anything I can do right now? Because I'm in first year, I can't apply to anything. And a lot of them would just say, no, just come back next year, come back for your internship, summer internship and things like that. And I wish I didn't listen. I actually researched online because there are a lot of sort of spring insight weeks, insight events, insight, anything about insight they just kind of have. And most companies have sort of programs like that. And you don't realize, but it can be extremely beneficial if you secure a place in a place that you actually want to apply to come your third year. They do tend to prioritize those kind of students, and they do favor those students. Like even if it's not that company you're applying to, it's extremely valuable that you have that on there. So if you think in your first year, oh, there's not much I can do, there is a lot you can do. You can actually apply to these programs. And for one of them, so in second year, I thought I wanted to be an investment banker, so I was like, I'm going to apply to all the investment banks. And I obviously didn't do any of the insight programs or anything. And I wanted to apply to Goldman Sachs, and my Upreach coordinator, she was very nice, but she told me the truth. She was like, you're probably not gonna get it, because she kind of explained it nice to me. She was like, if there's 50 positions and 40 people have done their insight week or insight whatever, they're going to get them in first, and then they're going to look at external applications, and that's a lot of people to filter through. So I think, again, not to demotivate anyone, but I think if you can secure those kind of things, they can be extremely beneficial. But even if you don't, which I think is important to say, I didn't secure anything. I didn't get any insight weeks. In second year, I didn't get a summer internship or a placement, or all my work experience were just kind of like little roles that I did, which are also really important if you don't have, I feel like I'm jumping from left to right, but they're also really important because anything you do can have, like, you can transfer your skills from, even if it's just a part-time job. It's the way you present it that matters, not what it is. So even just like a part-time job as a waitress, you can really get a lot from that compared to someone that can't describe what they did in an insight week, for example. So it really is just like how you sell it. I feel like I've lost my train of thought, but
I was going to say, I mean, you read my mind there, to be honest. Going back to what you were saying about maybe first year, but then it also applies to sort of middle years and final years. Would you agree it's very difficult to kind of do something that closes doors, or do something that maybe you would worry isn't relevant? There's almost kind of, when I think about employer expectations and the messages that we try to get across, it's almost kind of do something.
Yeah,
because exactly. Say there'll be something then that you'll take from it, even if it's in a different area, or I mean, we talk a little bit about volunteering, but I guess, would you sort of agree with that kind of approach? Do something.
100%. Like when I first heard that, I was just kind of like me having and I literally thought like this. It's very terrible, but I thought like this. I thought, oh, me getting a part-time job, like, because I had my part-time job in the library in first year. So I was like, oh, right. Me getting my part-time job in the library is not going to be as impressive as someone who had a summer internship. But that's really not true. And I know that from, people that I was up against, first of all, and people that, my friends and things that, didn't get specific jobs, even though you think that they're probably going to get it because they have more relevant work experience. It's not the case. And a lot of employers say, like, we don't expect you to know everything, but that is actually, they don't actually expect you to know much, because they teach you everything on their schemes. So you don't need to like decide what you're going to do and what you're meant to do for the rest of your life. Like, even now, like, I don't know if I'm going to stick with it. Like, I'm just, testing the waters kind of thing. But when it comes to that, I think you just need the relevant skills, or know what you need to be a part of that, and show that you're willing to learn. So I think that's kind of what they're looking for, is like your willingness to learn, that you don't need to know everything or have past experience. You don't need to have had like 3 years banking work experience to work in an investment bank. You just need to do something that, because like doing something is better than nothing, because it shows that you've actually done something instead of just sitting back and like crying about it kind of thing. So yeah.
Yes, it's that kind of, and I know it's something you and I have talked about, but particularly in the last 12 months with the world being upside down as it's been, it's kind of a bit harder, but it's kind of, how can you develop yourself as long as you're doing something to kind of, as you say, get up and be doing something then, and then if you're able to put that across to these employers in a way that's relevant and valuable, then you're there, aren't you? Yeah. Couple of other things I was just going to ask you. I mean, we were talking a bit before we obviously started the recording. I really like what you've done with your LinkedIn profile. We're talking about enthusiasm, and just for the record, Yagmur has on her LinkedIn profile, I think your title is now incoming Unilever. Not started working for them yet, but very much kind of incoming. What's your take on LinkedIn, Yagmur, and what sort of success have you had with that?
Something I actually wanted to speak about and I didn't mention. LinkedIn, I think, is very, it's like a hidden gem that not many people sort of use. And I had to actually create my account just because I was a part of our preaching. Like our login is our LinkedIn stuff, so you kind of have to do it. But I didn't use it for like a whole year. I didn't know what it was. I was just like, yeah, I have it, but I don't really use it. But I first, like, my LinkedIn sort of like was getting big from the Bright Network internships experience. What are like so many, I had like 300 connections for that 3 days because it was all students. And I think there's like a beauty in connecting with people on the same age as you, because there's a lot that you can learn from other people. So that's when it started becoming a big thing. And then I started using it more because I was like, okay, I have people that I'm connected with. I kind of want to see what they're doing and what I should be doing on it, because I didn't know what it was. But I think people use it for different reasons. If you want to job hunt, you go there. If you just want to like generic sort of news about companies or things like that, I think LinkedIn is a great place that you can use for that part of your CV actually, or cover letter actually, or in your assessment centers as well, just about like getting information about the companies, because they're not going to have a news article and everything that they do, but they do post about it on LinkedIn. So it's really more, I think it's more about commercial awareness, really, just in general. Like commercial awareness is really, really important, and LinkedIn really provides that. And yeah, like you can also put LinkedIn on your CV now as well, the link to that, and they do look so, I have been told that they do look so, yeah, just being quite vocal on there, really. And it's not all about successes either. There's a lot of posts about sort of like encouraging posts or sharing other people's posts that sort of give tips and advice. And it's you don't have to sort of be that guru that tells everyone what to do, but there's a lot to learn from that platform, I think. So especially like in the business world, if you want to go into sort of that business background as well, I think it's really, really helpful. And you can like follow really senior people, even connect with them if they let you. And like it's kind of, I think we talked about that actually, because I was really shocked, because like you see these like CEO people like on the news, on TV, and like, oh my god, like they must be really cool. Like you can literally connect with them on LinkedIn if they're up for it. You can message them and everything. So I think it closes that gap, and I think it sort of pushes you to realize that you can actually be a part of that world.
Distance, I guess, is that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I've heard it said, and I think we said before, the world can become a much smaller place on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
As you say, you're only so many connections away from somebody.
Yeah.
No, it's, I mean, I'm a huge advocate of it, so it's really good to get your take on that. And it's worth me mentioning for the video, obviously, as you're aware, Yagmur, Career Development Service offer workshops on LinkedIn.
I actually attended one of them, which is really helpful. So yeah, definitely.
So yeah, please, that's something we can support with. One final thing, really appreciate your time, Yagmur.
Yeah, no problem.
Insights and really, really valuable. I guess kind of, you're on the cusp of, Unilever incoming, as your LinkedIn profile says. There are, as you're aware, within the School of Business, students who will be going into their final year in the autumn. We're still in the midst of lockdown. Any kind of words of wisdom or tips for our student body that you'd like to kind of sign off with that, if you like, and leave them with?
Yeah, I think.
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, no, it's I think the biggest thing that I was told that I didn't really take on board, because exams is final year panic, is apply early. And I feel like everyone says that, but apply early. It's brutal. Like, I think especially because of COVID this year and last year, like I feel terrible for the years before, but
Yeah.
especially for this year, places started opening way back in August. Like, I learned this from my friends who apply for investment banking. If you are into investment banking, places open in the summer, literally apply straight away, like straight in there, because even though they may take a while to respond, I was told that like they've pretty much like gotten quite a lot of applications, so you should probably apply early for those. But I think just in general, like when they open, apply as soon as you can. I think you obviously like you need to prepare like your CV, cover letter, and things like that. So I think using that summer period before your final year, I think it's really important. Of course, you can still get experience. Like I did like the consultancy challenge at
Yeah.
I don't even remember when it was, but it was like in my third year. So I was still applying and still doing things. Like you can still multitask in that way to sort of bulk up your CV and your experiences to talk about. But I think it won't hurt sort of preparing or starting to prepare in summer, because applications just open so quickly and you get put on waiting lists. And for my KPMG application, it was so long. I withdrew because I got Unilever, but like the amount of time between the two stages, because I was put on wait on like the third stage of the like mid application, I was put on like a waiting list. Like you don't want that agony just like waiting and things. So if you apply early, I think that's like the biggest thing to do. And like don't give up. Like just put that in there as well. But like the career service said to me last year, like you're gonna get rejection. That's completely fine, because a lot of places give feedback, that you get feedback reports after your assessments that you've done as well. So it can be very helpful in that way, because you know what to improve on. But yeah, like it's a process. Everyone goes through it. It's not very nice when you get rejected, and some people may have not gotten rejected before like that, or like the volume of rejections you get sometimes, like it can be quite brutal. But I think like you will, like if you have that mindset of like you're gonna get a place, you're gonna be fine, just keep on pushing. I think that's kind of where you need to be at. And like don't cry about one application just because it didn't have, like just put it aside and keep going.
Move on to the next
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Yeah.
Really useful advice. And again, as we've said before, it can't be underestimated that you've actually gone through this and secured this role with Unilever in unprecedented times. To echo what you were saying, it can be done. Keep going, it can be done. Yagmur, Sissman, fantastic to talk to you. As you know, I really appreciate your insights, and this video will be really valuable for our students. So best of luck with your role. I'll keep in touch with you anyway. No doubt we will look to involve you with business school activities again. But yeah, I'll wish you with 5 minutes to 12 a good morning.
Thank you.
Stop the recording. But thank you very much, Yagmur. Thank you.
Thank you.